water occurs at that particular point. And when we plot this using software, of course, we get a diagram. The diagram which represents how the flow of water might have happened from one point to another, from higher gradient to lower gradient, tells us the flow net. Now all these lines, which you can see continuous or making a circle, those are called as equipotential lines. Okay? And something that is cutting across the equipotential lines are called as flow lines. Okay? Now, whenever the flow lines converge, we consider that it is a point where the area is getting recharged. Whenever they are wherever it is diverging, okay, when they are converging, it is giving water. When it is diverging, it is the place where it takes an ample amount of water. So similarly, we can see those 3 and 4 marked areas, which are from where there is a huge amount of water which is moving out. Now, equipotential lines here are regularly spaced, except for one part where they come together. The point 8 here coincides. Now, we see a depression there. There is a lot of water which is, all the flow lines are merging. So, that is considered to be a depression point. I'll just conclude in a minute. When we cross-related that point on field, we come to a realization that it's a hotel or the restaurant set up there, which is probably pumping huge quantity of water because there's a depression that is created. We have few limitations because it's a project done at TY level. Time was a major factor, so it was done on a smaller scale. Wells we have picked up on a randomly. So again, there can be problem. There should be availability of wells also. Most of the wells are in good condition. They are not in use. They should be in use. Otherwise, the water quality, except for those 5 wells which are before was positive for E. coli, could be still used for consumption. Thank you.
Major iron ore producers in India, and nearly half of the iron ore export comes from Goa. And about 5% of the GDP presently is being through the mining of Goa. And in 2012, there was a blanket ban on mining by the Supreme Court of India. And so, including Goa, everywhere the mining was stopped. And it got reinstated in 2015 again. The basic problem of the mining is the mining rejects, the tailings, which often find its way to the coastal water bodies, even in fact the estuaries, lakes, and which finally goes up to the marine ecosystem or to the marine water, sea waters. So why we have chosen this foraminifera, this microorganisms, because they bind themselves the characteristics of the seawater, and they are ubiquitous, and they can bind themselves to the characteristics of the seawaters and have the subtle changes. They can bind these subtle changes in their shell. We have used benthic foraminifera for our study. There are 2 previous studies based on this foraminiferal assemblage, how mining has affected. There was a paper by Dr. Kamesh Rao in 1974, which just stated how the assemblages are of foraminifera in the estuary, Zuari and Mandovi estuary. Further on, in 2005, Dr. Rajni Panchang had a paper on how the mining has affected the Zuari estuary through the benthic foraminifera. She stated that as the manganese ore, earlier there was mining from the sectors of manganese ores. Goa has a 2 mining belt. Like northern part is having the iron ore, basically gave more in iron ore, and southern was in manganese. Earlier there used to be mining in manganese more. Now it is being more in iron, and the shift has changed towards the north. So, but why we are studying Zuari, which is in the southern flank? Because we have the major port through which this mine is being transported. So this is the present study area. We have 2 sampling legend indicates the 2 sampling years. The inverted arrow indicates the 2013 year and 2016 year in which the samples are collected. This is a standard methodology. We took a trawler and on which we took a crab sampler, Niskin bottle for this physiochemical characteristics, water characteristics, to measure water characteristics, and graph sampler for the sediment. We basically take the graph sampler and took the sediment and scoop 2 centimeter, top 2 centimeter, and stain them to a rose Bengal. Then we defreeze them, freeze dried them, Then we soaked them, washed them, and then finally oven dried, and we got a post fraction through which we have picked these foraminiferous. Moving on to the results, as expected, the salinity and pH showed a decreasing trend from the lower reaches to the upper reaches of the estuary.
Recommendations that really laid the foundations for a lot of things that we are discussing here today in the context of environment, in the context of development. That particular meeting actually had given us a few, what we call as sound bites. The first time, at political level, because a lot of time, we are all people working in science. To an extent, everybody in this room is converted. I don't have to say how much environment is important, what is the contribution of biodiversity, what is the impact of climate change, any one of you. We all know about it. But for a politician, for a head of a state, these are some of the concepts and ideas which are relatively very, very new at that time. But what that particular conference has done was that actually laid a kind of very, very important foundation to discuss about the future of development. And at that time, a particular word was made more popular, which is called intergenerational equity. So what it means is that everybody who lives on this particular planet, we are all like guests of this particular planet. We inherited something from our fathers and forefathers, but we have an absolute responsibility to pass on what we have inherited to our future generations. At least, if not in a better way, in the way we have inherited. So that is what is called the intergenerational equity. But very interestingly in that meeting, the Prime Minister of India made a very, very important statement which got a lot of headlines, including in India, when she said that poverty is the worst kind of pollution. Very profound statement at that time. But of course, as we progress in our understanding of how to deal with poverty alleviation, how to deal with environmental protection, environmental management, how to be good and responsible ancestors for our future generation, we recognize that it's probably not poverty which is degrading environment, but it is degradation of environment which is causing poverty. So there is a kind of a complete shift in the way we actually have started to understand the link between development, the link between environmental protection and environmental management. Years later, 1992, many of you would have heard of this major international UN-led conference called the UN Conference on Environment and Development. That was held in Rio de Janeiro in Brazil, which at that time was called the Earth Summit, the Rio Earth Summit. And we had 162 heads of state who were present in that conference, where the heads of state adopted a set of 21 principles for managing this planet better. Management in terms of economic sustainability, management in terms of social inclusiveness, management in terms of better environment. And that is why we call the 3 pillars of sustainable development: dealing with economics, dealing with environment, and dealing with the elements of social problems. So the birth of civilizations have already become major bottlenecks for development in terms of having difficulties of development also. And whenever we talk of development, a lot of us are aware of the 4 components. You can't have development unless there is human capital. The biggest advantage for a country like India, we call it as a demographic dividend of the country. India probably will have the best possible young workforce, youngsters anywhere in this world to transform the country to one of the most sustainable countries on this planet. The human capital is something which is very, very important. But for us to achieve that capital to work in a very positive way, you need to invest in translating that capital into something tangible and something actionable. And that is why there is so much of emphasis today in terms of education. Education, not what is the way we are learning it, the way we are sort of sitting for our exams, the way we are being evaluated, but a complete transformation in the way we are actually looking at education. Gone are the days when an expert like me will come and tell you what I know and go. It has to be from the other side. A good mentor, today we are not looking at teachers as teachers. Teachers are to be mentors. Unless you are inspired to do things differently, whatever you are learning is what your fathers and grandfathers have learned and what your sons and grandsons are going to learn. That's not going to help. You need to think individually, you need to think independently. And that is why today the entire education is being transformed from being a teaching-based module into a learning-based module. And there can't be a better opportunity than teachers becoming mentors and you also investing your time in self-learning, peer-to-peer learning. There can't be a better opportunity for you to do it. So a lot of emphasis on human capital, a lot of emphasis on social capital. Take any development project, whatever is at panchayat level, national level, international level, the social capital is what is being seen as the most significant element of investments. Green growth, green development, green business, green investment, everything is green. But then, how green that green should be is a question that all of us need to ask. But if I'm going to be sitting in a scientific conference and speaking about these numbers, probably people will be excited. But let us talk to an audience of policymakers, politicians, and business people in this room. The best way to communicate to them is to tell 2 or 3 different things. First, unless there is a crisis, we will not act. So you have to start communicating and messaging some of it in a manner that it's going to be a catastrophe for the country. Today, the biggest service that was done by a senator from the UK, Lord Nicholas Stern, many of you would have heard of the report, that Stern report on climate change. He single-handedly was able to make the prime ministers and presidents focus on climate change when he only had one message to say, that if you do not invest in dealing with climate change mitigation and adaptation today, a percentage of your GDP will be lost less than 10 years from now. Now everybody speaks about climate change. So all of us understand economics. All of us understand the dollars. All of us understand the rupees. But that does not mean that you can value all the elements of that diversity in dollar terms as well. There is so much of these resources that are there for aesthetic value. There's so much of resources that are there for cultural and spiritual values. I was talking about the sacred groves of Goa, the mapping has been going on or to be completed. That's a spiritual value. There's an aesthetic value to that. But then, to seek the attention of people who actually matter, who are impacting this particular biodiversity loss, it is inevitable that we speak the language of dollars. So what I'm now trying to do is to give you some numbers to make you understand what is the opportunity we are losing. Remember one thing, the moment you talk of climate change, you are talking of loss to economy, gaining anywhere from $2,000 to $20,000 per year. But it's just about 75 to 100 million people who actually have started making money investing in biodiversity conservation and environmental management, where the markets are more than $20,000. So what is important for us is just not to know this particular number, but how do you actually move up the bottom of the pyramid? That is what is going to be an important challenge. It's a challenge for dosing off. But when they said that climate change threatens economy, the room was full, everybody was up there. So, what is important for us working in environment is just not to know the importance of these problems or the solutions, but how do you communicate some of this? That is something which we are missing. And that is something which is still not perfected. No colleges, no universities teaches us how to communicate what we are doing. You don't communicate what you are doing, it is equal to you not doing anything.